My coworker didn't just steal from me. He stole from the one person in that building who documents everything and forgets nothing. And the worst part, I actually liked him before I realized he was unzipping my backpack while telling me how much he respected hard work. If you're wondering why I didn't just go straight to HR, it's because where I work, prove it is more important than we believe you. And for a long time, I honestly thought I was the problem. I thought I was tired, forgetful, careless. Nobody wants to admit the guy they eat lunch with is the one emptying their wallet $5 at a time. This started almost a year ago, long before the thing he really shouldn't have taken. I work in a mid-sized distribution warehouse. Nothing glamorous. We handle electrical components, tools, all the stuff contractors order and never think about again. My job is inventory and prep. I sign things in, label them, and make sure the right pallet ends up on the right truck. 8, sometimes 10 hours on concrete. Scanner on my hip, steel toes, fluorescent lights humming like they're complaining louder than we are. We have a little break room that someone tried to make nice once. Coffee maker that leaks, a couch that leans to the left, 2 vending machines and a bulletin board nobody looks at unless their paycheck is late. Against the back wall, there's a row of cheap metal lockers, just big enough for a jacket, a backpack, and a pair of headphones. That's where I kept my stuff. That's where he kept his too. His name's Kyle. Late 20s, same as me. Messy hair, faded band t-shirts, always 5 minutes late, and somehow always the one cracking a joke loud enough to make the supervisors pretend they didn't hear it. On paper, he was just picker-loader B-17. In reality, he was the guy who covered my shift the day my mom had surgery. The guy who brought donuts when we hit a big order target. The guy who stayed late to help me recount an entire pallet after a barcode misread. When he first started, everyone liked him. I did too. I mean, I shared my tools with him. I'm weird about my tools. Most of what we use is company issued. But over the years, I've bought my own stuff. A good box cutter that doesn't jam. A label maker that actually prints straight. A small digital caliper I use when the supplier sends us something that should be 10 décimales and never is. It sounds stupid, but those things make 10-hour days less miserable. They're mine, not the company's, and I keep them organized in a gray plastic tote under my station. The first time I noticed something off, it was tiny. I was closing one night. Everyone else already signed out. I opened my tote to grab my label maker, and one of the spare tape cartridges was missing. I always keep 3, 1 in the machine, 2 in the side compartment. There was only 1 left. I actually laughed at myself. Long day brain fog. Maybe I miscounted. Maybe I used 1 last week and forgot. It bothered me, but not enough to do anything about it. I went home, made a mental note to order more tape, and tried not to think about it. The second time, it wasn't warehouse supplies. It was cash. We get a 30-minute lunch. That day, I didn't feel like eating in the break room, so I grabbed my sandwich and went out to my car. My wallet stayed in my locker, because that's what you do. You trust the metal box with the flimsy lock more than the outside world. When I came back, my locker door was closed, lock still hanging there like nothing happened. After shift, I stopped at the gas station and opened my wallet. I remember freezing right there between pump 3 and 4. I always keep a little fold of cash in the back pocket. I get paid direct deposit, but I like having 40, maybe $50 on me in case the vending machines decide they only accept cash that day. That morning, I had 40, 2 20s. I know, because I'd checked before deciding I could afford gas and a bad coffee. There was 120 left. For a good 30 seconds, my brain tried to protect me. Maybe I broke a 20 earlier in the week. Maybe I bought something and forgot. Maybe the bill machine at the car wash ate one. I stood there, replaying the last few days in my head, and every version ended in the same place. The only time my wallet was out of my hands was when it was sitting in that locker. I told myself I was paranoid. I told myself if someone was going to steal, they'd take more than 20. I told myself that accusing coworkers without proof was the fastest way to become that guy everyone avoids. I went back to work the next day like nothing happened. Kyle was already there, leaning against the conveyor, scrolling his phone. "Yo, man," he said, grinning. "You look like you slept in your boots." "Didn't sleep much," I answered, spinning my locker combo. "Inventory week," he laughed. "They ever pay you extra for that, or do you just work for the love of barcodes?" He was close enough that if he'd opened my locker himself, he would have seen everything. Close enough that I could smell the cheap cologne he only wore on days he had somewhere to be after work. Close enough that if I'd said, "Hey, did you take $20 out of my wallet yesterday?" I could have watched his face and maybe known. I didn't say it. I just shoved my backpack in, locked the door, and told myself to stop being dramatic. A few weeks later, management held a quick huddle at the start of shift. That's never good news. Our supervisor, Greg, stood there with his clipboard and his corporate voice. "Shrinkage is up," he said. "Inventory numbers aren't matching what leaves the building. Nothing massive, but enough that corporate flagged it. So from now on, no personal packages inside the warehouse, no unapproved visitors, and we're reviewing camera footage more regularly." Nobody looked guilty. Nobody ever does. A couple guys rolled their eyes. Kyle raised his hand like we were in school. "So if corporate thinks we're all stealing, do we at least get a discount code?" he joked. The group chuckled. Greg didn't. "This isn't a joke, Kyle." I watched him out of the corner of my eye. He didn't look nervous. He didn't look anything. Just bored. That was the day I started counting more carefully. I stopped leaving my wallet in the locker. It went into my front pocket, uncomfortable but safe. My tools stayed under my station, labeled, lid closed. I took pictures of how I left things at the end of my shift. A stupid habit, but it helped me feel like I wasn't losing my mind. If something moved, I'd know. For a while, nothing did. No missing cartridges, no misplaced tape, no disappearing bills. I almost convinced myself I'd been wrong about everything. Then the company bought new torque drivers. They were expensive. We needed them for a specific client who required exact torque specs on every fastener in their assemblies. The old ones were out of calibration, so they gave me one of the new digital ones and told me, "You're responsible for this. Sign here." I signed. I took it seriously. I kept it in a locked drawer built into my station, not in my locker. During shift, I'd check it out on the sheet, use it, then lock it back up. Greg liked to joke that if the building burned down, they'd find me in the ashes, still holding that driver. One Tuesday, I came in like normal. Clocked in, grabbed my scanner, nodded at Kyle, who was pretending to yawn his way through stretching. I went to my station, opened the drawer to grab the torque driver. The drawer was empty. Not messy, not rummaged through, just wrong. The foam insert was there, shaped like the tool. The tool wasn't. I stared at that empty space longer than I had stared at my half-empty wallet. My stomach did that slow sink, like when you miss the last step in the dark. I checked the workbench, the shelves, under the tote, as if a $400 torque driver could just roll away like a pen. Nothing. I pulled the sign-out sheet. The last signature was mine. From yesterday. No one else's name. No note. No supervisor initials. "Lose something, man?" Kyle's voice floated over from the next lane. I turned. He was leaning on his pallet jack, watching me with that lazy half-smile he always had when he was bored. "Have you seen the torque driver?" I asked. He shrugged. "Nah, you had it yesterday, right? Maybe Greg grabbed it, or someone from second shift. You know they don't sign anything out." He said it casually, like it was nothing. Like my job, my reputation, the trust my boss had put in me weren't all tied to that one piece of equipment. I nodded slowly. Yeah, maybe. I walked to Greg's office. He hadn't seen it. Second shift hadn't logged anything. Nobody had checked it in, nobody had checked it out. And according to the only sheet that mattered, I was still the last person who touched it. By lunch, Greg had forwarded the issue to his boss. By the end of the day, I'd had the same conversation 3 times. Are you sure you didn't take it home by accident? Are you sure you put it back? Are you sure you're sure? By closing, I wasn't angry yet. I was something worse. I was calm enough to realize that if I didn't start keeping better records than the people accusing me, I was going to pay for something I didn't do. That night, when I locked my station and turned out the lights, I didn't go straight to my car. I walked back to the break room, stood in front of my locker, and stared at the thin metal door that had never looked so small. For the first time, I let myself think the thing I'd been dodging for weeks. If someone was stealing, it wasn't random. And if it wasn't random, it was personal. That was the night I stopped thinking of Kyle as the funny guy I worked with and started wondering what exactly he thought he could get away with. Most people think anger hits fast. Mine didn't. It built in layers, quiet ones, while everyone else kept telling me to double-check the drawer I'd already checked 15 times. By the second day without the torque driver, the warehouse changed in a way only I seemed to notice. Conversations stopped when I walked by. Greg hovered more than usual. The clipboard warriors from upstairs came down to observe the workflow, which is corporate language for, "We don't trust you, but we're pretending we do." What made it worse was Kyle. He wasn't avoiding me. He wasn't nervous. He was, cheerful. Too cheerful. He kept saying things like, "Man, that sucks," and "hope it turns up," with this tone, this little upward twist at the end, like he was performing sympathy rather than feeling it. Every time he opened his locker, mine was in the corner of my vision, far enough away to be private, close enough for someone confident to reach into. And he was confident. That was the problem. The guy who stole from you once might hesitate. The guy who stole from you 10 times thinks it's his routine. Corporate sent a message down midweek. If the torque driver isn't located by Friday, cost responsibility will fall to the last recorded handler. That was me. Recorded being the only word anyone cared about. I don't tell them the part where someone erased the record. Thursday morning, I stepped into the break room and saw something I hadn't seen before. Kyle at my locker. He wasn't touching it. He wasn't that stupid. But he stood close enough to make the message clear. He looked over his shoulder at me with a grin. "Morning, man. You good? You look stressed." "Long week?" I said, setting my bag down. "Yeah, losing company property will do that." He said it with a smile so easy it felt like a slap. I closed my locker. "Funny." "Hey, just saying. Keep your head up. It'll turn up." He winked. Actually winked. These things always do. And that was the moment something in me shifted. Not anger, not panic. Precision. If he wanted to play confident, I'd let him. Confidence makes people sloppy. Around lunch, I tested something. I left my station for 5 minutes, just long enough to make it look unintentional. My gray tote was closed. Inside, nothing valuable. But on top of the bench, visible and tempting, I placed a roll of brand new industrial labels, still wrapped in plastic. Easy to pocket, easy to hide, easy to track. Then I walked to the restroom on the far side of the warehouse. When I came back, Kyle wasn't at his lane. The label roll was gone. I didn't say a word. Not to him, not to Greg, not yet. Because that was just a test. I needed proof. Not suspicion. Not a feeling. Proof. But that was just the beginning. After shift, instead of going home, I drove to a cheap electronics store 2 blocks away. I bought 3 things. A pack of tiny adhesive tags with micro QR codes, a cheap USB flash drive, and a small keychain camera disguised as a marker. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, nothing that left a trail. At home, I sat at my kitchen table and built the trap that would end everything. First, the marker camera. I taped it under my workbench, angled at the only place someone would stand to access my drawers or tote. The lens was the size of a pinhead. Unless you knew where it was, the chances of seeing it were near 0. Second, the QR tag system. Each tag was like a hidden serial number. Stick it on something, scan it later, and you'd know if it was moved or swapped. I put them everywhere. inside the sleeves of my tape rolls, under my caliper, on the back of my box cutter. I even put one inside my cheap-looking backup label maker. Third, the flash drive. It looked normal, but I filled it with a single video file named Invoice 4438 PDF, something a thief would open instantly. The video was a clean recording of Kyle accidentally slipping a tape cartridge into his pocket 2 weeks earlier. I'd caught that one on my phone without meaning to. We were joking around. I zoomed in for a dumb clip, and only later noticed what he'd done in the corner of the frame. On the drive, I added a text file too. If you're seeing this, it means you stole from the wrong person. Was it dramatic? Sure. Accurate? Absolutely. Friday morning, everything was in place. I arrived early, unlocked my station, and put one more item on the bench, a small black pouch with a zipper. Inside it, the flash drive wrapped in a microfiber cloth, like it was delicate or expensive. Whatever story Kyle had built in his head about me, one thing was clear. He thought I was easy to steal from. He thought I'd panic, stutter, doubt myself. He thought he could take anything he wanted and I wouldn't say a word. I didn't have to accuse him. I didn't have to confront him. All I had to do was let him be himself. Around 10:30, I left for receiving to help unload a pallet. It took maybe 12 minutes. When I came back, Kyle was at his station, but standing in a way that let him see mine. Something had changed in the air. I walked slowly, casually, like nothing mattered. I looked down at my workbench. The pouch was gone. He took it. He actually took it. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a sharp, clean emotion cut through the fog of irritation and doubt. Relief. Because now it wasn't a question of if. It was only a matter of watching the fallout hit him. I walked past him, pretending to be focused on the scanner in my hand. He didn't look up. He didn't have to. He already knew he'd crossed a line, but he didn't know which line, or how hard he was about to fall over it. That night, I stopped being the guy trying to understand him. I stopped being patient. I stopped being forgiving. I stopped being the hero in his story. And I became the worst thing a thief can face. A man who knows exactly what was taken and is already holding the proof to destroy you. I didn't sleep much that night, not from anxiety, but from clarity. There's a strange kind of calm that settles in when you finally stop wondering and start knowing. The pouch was gone. The flash drive was gone. The camera under my bench had a full view of the moment his hand closed around it. Now I just had to let him react. The warehouse opened at 7. I showed up at 6:30, unlocked my station, and acted like any other morning. Scanner on the charger, tote under the bench, clipboard on the hook. Anyone watching would think I was gearing up for another long, predictable shift. Kyle arrived 2 minutes late, like always, bouncing in with his usual fake energy. "Yo, man!" he called across the aisle, too loud, too practiced. "Morning," I said, not looking at him. He lingered, as if waiting for something. Panic, desperation, a question. When I didn't give him one, he drifted away. But the way he kept glancing over told me everything I needed to know. He had opened the flash drive. He had seen the video. He had read the message. People underestimate silence. They think confrontation is loud, explosive, cinematic. But real fear, the kind that sticks, that one's quiet. It's the type you feel in your ribs when the person you wronged isn't reacting the way you rehearsed in your head. By 9, Kyle's whole rhythm was off. He dropped a box. He snapped at another coworker. He kept wiping his palms on his shirt. And then, exactly like I predicted, he made his move. I was scanning a pallet when I felt him come up behind me. His voice was too soft, too low for someone who loved being loud. "Hey, can we talk?" I didn't turn. "I'm working." "It's important, man." I scanned another barcode. "So is this." He stepped closer. "Did you leave something out on purpose yesterday?" There it was, the first crack. I lowered the scanner slowly and looked at him. "What are you talking about?" His eyes darted sideways, checking if anyone was listening. "The pouch. That thing." "The pouch I left on my bench?" I asked. "That pouch?" He swallowed. "Yeah. What about it?" He hesitated, then forced a smile. The kind people wear when they're drowning and pretending it's a swim. I mean, someone grabbed it, right? Did you figure out who? I did. His face twitched. And? And what? I said. If I know who took it, why would I ask you? He froze. For the first time since I'd known him, Kyle had no script. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Then he backed away with a weird half nod, like he was pretending he understood something he definitely didn't. But that wasn't the real moment. The real moment happened at 10:15. I was at my station when I saw Greg walking fast, phone in hand, eyes locked on Kyle. He didn't yell. He didn't make a scene. He just motioned with 2 fingers. Office now, Kyle stiffened. Why? What happened? Now, Greg repeated. Bring your badge. That line hits different in a warehouse. Bring your badge means you might not need it again. Kyle glanced at me for half a second. Not angry, not confused, terrified. He followed Greg across the floor. Every pair of eyes in the building tracked them until the door closed behind them. Then silence, the kind that means something's gone wrong. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 20. And when the office door opened again, Kyle wasn't the one walking out. Greg stepped out first, holding a stack of papers and a small zip bag with something metal inside. Behind him, 2 security guys followed, and between them, Kyle. He wasn't handcuffed, but he might as well have been. His face was pale, his hands shaky. His eyes were fixed on the floor like he was hoping it would open up and swallow him. Everyone stopped working. Everyone watched. Greg said the sentence I'd been waiting for. Per company policy, you're terminated effective immediately. You'll be escorted to collect your personal items. Kyle stammered. This is crazy. This is a setup. He planted. There's no way. Greg cut him off. We reviewed the footage. Those 4 words dropped like a hammer. Kyle whipped his head toward me. You think you're smart? He spat. You think this fixes anything? You're done too. You hear me? Done. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The security guys started moving him toward the exit. Kyle kept twisting around, yelling half-sentences no one cared to interpret. You set me up, manipulated, psychopath. This isn't over. He was wrong. It was over. But the real payoff came 15 minutes later when Greg called me into the office. He shut the door behind me, sat down, and folded his hands. I owe you an apology, he said. It caught me off guard. For what? For assuming you misplaced the torque driver. He slid a piece of paper across the desk. An incident report. We found it in Kyle's trunk, along with several other items he stole over the last few months. My tools, my cartridges, other people's equipment, even merchandise that counted as corporate theft. Greg exhaled. We only caught it because of that flash drive. He opened it on a company computer. IT flagged it immediately, and when they reviewed the video, he shook his head. You saved us a lot of money and a lot of trouble. I didn't say anything. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt done. Then he leaned forward. Look, I know this has been hell for you. So the regional manager and I talked. We want to move you into a lead position. Better pay, better hours. You've already been doing the work. This just makes it official. For the first time in weeks, my chest loosened. I appreciate it, I said quietly. You earned it, he replied. And if anyone gives you grief for what happened, send them to me. I walked out of the office to a warehouse full of stares, some sympathetic, some guilty, some impressed. Not one of them belonged to Kyle. He was already gone. And for the first time since the stealing started, the air in the warehouse felt light again, like someone had finally opened a window. They thought I was gone. I wasn't. I was just getting started, rebuilding what he tried to take. And the best part? I never raised my voice. I never made a scene. I never lied. I just let the truth do its job. The day after Kyle was fired, the warehouse felt different. Not in the loud, dramatic way people imagine justice feels, but in the quiet, comfortable way a room feels when someone finally takes the trash out. Conversations were lighter. Tools stayed where they were left. Nobody hovered around my station anymore. But the biggest difference was internal. I didn't wake up bracing for something to go missing. Saturday morning, I stopped by the hardware store for a new tape cartridge and a pack of markers. Not because I needed them, I had plenty, but because for the first time in months, buying something for work didn't feel stupid. It didn't feel like feeding a thief. It felt like investing in my own space again. I walked into the warehouse Monday with an ease I hadn't felt in a long time. My lock clicked cleanly. My tote sat exactly where I left it. My tools were untouched. Peace wasn't dramatic. Peace was normal again. Around 10, Greg called me into the office for the formal lead shift orientation. HR paperwork, new badge, responsibilities. Nothing glamorous, just structure. Right after we wrapped, he hesitated, then said, "You know, a lot of people were watching how you handled this. Most folks would have blown up, pointed fingers, made it a circus. You didn't." I just didn't want to accuse anyone until I knew. Greg nodded. "That's why you're the right person for this role. You act from proof, not emotion." He meant it as a compliment, but it hit deeper than that. It made something settle in me. A confirmation that all the restraint, all the documentation, all the nights I spent questioning myself had a purpose. When I stepped back onto the warehouse floor, people actually looked relieved. A couple of guys clapped me on the shoulder. One of the loaders muttered, "About damn time." Even the older forklift operator, who never acknowledged anything, gave me a nod. But even with the support, the aftermath wasn't completely clean. Because Kyle didn't leave quietly. That afternoon, I got a text from an unknown number. "You think you're the hero. You ruined my life. This isn't over." I blocked the number. 2 hours later, another one appeared. "You planted that evidence. Admit it." Blocked. That night, another. "You're going to regret this. I'll make sure of it." Blocked again. It didn't scare me. Threats without a plan are just noise. And he had lost the one environment where he could steal without consequences. Out here, the world wasn't built for people who needed shadows to function, but it annoyed me enough that I compiled every message into a single PDF and emailed it to HR with a short note, documenting this in case he attempts contact with the company. Their reply came 15 minutes later. "Understood. We'll handle it." I didn't hear from him again. Not directly, anyway. But his name floated around the warehouse like dust in the light, mentioned in half-sentences, rumors, theories. He tried to get another warehouse job, but HR flagged the termination. He blamed Greg, said it was favoritism. He told someone he'd sued the company. He's living with his cousin now. Every story made him smaller, less relevant. A man spiraling in circles of his own making, trying to find momentum in a world that had finally stopped letting him take shortcuts. Meanwhile, my life moved forward. As lead, I got to reorganize the areas we all hated. I labeled things properly, built a new sign-out system, fixed the mess second shift always left behind. For the first time, people actually listened when I suggested changes. The turnover dropped. The workflow smoothed out. Mistakes decreased. One afternoon, Greg walked over and said, "I don't know how to explain this, but the warehouse feels better. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Because the truth was simple. When you take chaos out of an environment, people breathe again. About 3 weeks after Kyle's firing, I was in the break room grabbing coffee when one of the guys, Miguel, approached me awkwardly. "Hey, I wanted to say something, not sure how." I looked up. "What's up?" He shifted. "I was one of the people who thought maybe you lost the driver, or the cash, or the cartridges. I didn't say anything, but I thought it, and I'm sorry." I didn't judge him. Everyone wants to believe the easier explanation. It's less work. "It's fine," I said. "You weren't the one stealing." He nodded. "Yeah, but you handled it better than most people would. Just wanted you to know that." If there was a moment that felt like closure, not victory, but closure, it was that one. Because justice isn't loud. Justice is when the people who doubted you start seeing things clearly. By the end of the month, the warehouse had a new torque driver policy. Tools were locked, logged, scanned. No one handled inventory without signing in and out. The regional manager even sent an email thanking me for a proactive approach to loss prevention. I didn't tell them the truth. I wasn't trying to prevent loss. I was trying to stop one man. Everything else was a bonus. Life settled. Routine returned. Peace rooted itself deeper. No more missing cash. No more stolen tools. No more anxiety when I opened my locker. The world shrank back into something manageable and steady. And that's when the real final moment happened. A small one, but it tied everything together. It was a Thursday. I stayed late, organizing a shipment prep for Friday morning. When I finally walked out, the warehouse lights dimmed behind me, humming quietly like a tired animal settling back into sleep. I stepped into the cool evening air, headed to my car, and paused for a second at the driver's door, not because I doubted anything, not because I was worried, but because the simplicity of the moment hit me. No noise, no games, no missing things, no shadow waiting behind me. Just a man, a key, a car, and a job he could walk into without bracing himself. Sometimes justice isn't revenge. Sometimes justice is silence. The kind Kyle could never stand. The kind he could never create. The kind he could never steal. I drove home with the windows down, letting the night air pour in, and it felt like the first honest breath I'd taken in months. I didn't just get my stuff back. I didn't just get a promotion. I didn't just expose a thief. I got something better. A life that wasn't being chipped away piece by piece. And the best part? I didn't have to hurt him. I didn't have to confront him. I didn't have to get even. I just had to let him open the thing he was so sure he deserved to take. Turns out the only thing worse than stealing from the wrong person is discovering exactly who that person becomes once you do.